A key aspect of remembrance is to celebrate the achievement of refugees and survivors and remind ourselves of how poorer this world would be if they had not been saved. With me is Debbie Arnold, whose mother Mary came to London on the very last train as part of the kindertransport programme. Welcome to the Alex Salmond Show, Debbie.
Hi, Alex. Thank you for having me.
Now, your mother told you a great deal about what she remembers, so tell me exactly, how old was she? What did she remember about the getting on the train? What was the last time she saw your grandparents?
Well, she remembers sitting on her papa's knee and him saying to her, if you hear yes and no, you're in England. So she knew those words in English. Then she said that she remembered going to the station and she was really excited to go and see a train in a station. And she was with Mama and Papa.
And this was from Vienna?
This was from Vienna. She was holding her mother and father's hand, and her auntie was there as well, and she was skipping towards the train. Loads of people at the station. Then she turned around and her mother had gone, her father had gone, and she was holding hands with her auntie. And she was looking around for Mama and Papa, bearing in mind she was this high. And then the next thing she knew, she was pushed on the train and turned around and her auntie was gone. And then she started to get frightened and started to cry, and she couldn't see over to the window. So, you know, the train was here and my mother couldn't see out of the window, so she just started to cry.
Did she begin to understand what had happened, why it had happened?
Well, I think probably years later, but she was picked up at Harwich, and then she went to a family in London. And
this is not a Jewish family?
No. I mean, a lot of the Jewish families wouldn't take the children, and I mean, that's quite common knowledge. And I don't know if it was their fear about, you know, what would happen to them, but a lot of them went to Gentile families. And so my mother didn't even know she was Jewish until she was 11 anyway.
When did she determine to sort of reclaim her Jewish heritage?
Well, she didn't really know anything about it until she left. She was brought up into this family, and she was a companion for their daughter. And my mum came with some beautiful boots as a child, and beautiful clothes from Vienna, and all of these clothes were given to this other child. And so she lay there in this little bed, and she used to say that she used to lie on the end of her bed. Oh my God, this is going to make me cry. I'm sorry. She used to lie on the end of her bed and wait for Mummy to come and get her.
You're thinking about it. It shows that the impact of these events succeeds down the generations.
Oh, sure, because it makes you so, you know, aware of your mortality for a start, of how brave my grandparents were, but this tiny little girl who had no one. And so when I was born, she looked after me, she loved me so much, but she really didn't know how to be a mum herself. So when at 11 years old, she went to the Beacon in Tunbridge Wells, which is where all the children went, and I think that would probably be just after the war had finished, or about when the war was finishing. She was sent to the Beacon in Tunbridge Wells, and then she met all the other children who'd been on the kindertransport, children that had came over, and they were all together in this place in Tunbridge Wells. And that's when my mum started to realise who she was, and that she was Jewish.
Their stories.
Yes, and then she got the telegram, because then they were all given telegrams about saying what had happened to their parents. And she said all the other kids were getting telegrams: sister alive, brother alive, Mary Grimminger, parents exterminated. That was it. So she just thought, well, that's it.
And that's how the news was broken, just in the form of
a telegram, parents exterminated. That was the end.
So your mum, after thinking she was alone in the world, all of a sudden a brother pops up. Did she tell you how she felt when she was introduced to a close relative?
Well, Uncle Joseph found her, and the reason that he found her was that her father was in Auschwitz, and he found his father in Auschwitz. And he said to his father said to his son, you have a sister in England, and you have to go and find her. So Joseph escaped from Auschwitz, which is very rare, not many people did. And he came to find his sister in England, and he found her. I remember when I met Uncle Joseph, and the first thing my mother showed me was the number on his arm.
From Auschwitz?
Yeah.
And he also was able to give your mum more information about the family.
Yes, saying that his father was a comedian, that he was a big star in the Yiddish theatre.
So at a relatively young age, she became Miss, I think 18, she became Miss Great Britain, and then she had you at what, 20?
Well, she married my dad. My dad was a very big star then, and she married him. She met him in a Jewish dance, and he found, because he always wanted to adopt one of the children from the kindertransport. So when he found her, he brought her home to his house in Sunderland and said, "Look, I found my refugee." So he got her from the very beginning, if you like. So he kidnapped her and took her to Sunderland, which it really was a kidnap. But she did very well, and then he became ill, and because he was very, very successful, he topped the play stadium 3 times in 3 months, and his career was just taking off.
So everything took a fantastic turn in life for the better, and then tragedy struck.
Yeah, then he had a brain tumour, and then my mum had to learn how to survive without him. And of course, a friend of hers had just opened a nightclub in Newcastle, and he asked her if he could ring up somebody to book him, and my mum then became an agent.
Do you think knowing the background of your family affected you? Did it make you more determined, or were there, emotional drawbacks to it?
Well, I think your values are very different when you know what you've come from, because you are, the child of a refugee. So therefore, things that are transient don't mean that much. I mean, my mother always used to say, and remember the thing about fame as well, because my father was very famous, and she used to say to me, and you can forget about fame, darling, because you can't take it to bed with you, and it doesn't love you at night, and it doesn't pay the bills. So it's made us all very, very level-headed.
When you see the stories of other refugee families and their descendants and the success they've achieved in a range of human endeavour, do you have a feeling of solidarity? Is there a feeling of justification?
Yes, I do. I feel that with any people that have had family in the kindertransport, or people that have lost people in the Holocaust, I feel hugely connected to them. Because I think that the thing is now everything's become very diluted, and we're in a very sort of cosmopolitan society, so there's mixes of everything. But I feel what we went through, I still feel it's part of me. It's never left me. I don't know if my children feel the same, but it's definitely part of me.
What message do you think it sends to societies which accept refugees in terms of the potential for good, which often comes out of evil?
Yes, I mean, I think people should look after refugees. I really do. I understand that, that there is a possibility that there's a huge influx of people. But I think when there's a war and we can help people, why wouldn't you?
Listening to your life story, and your mum's story in particular, I mean, your family is living testimony, firstly, to what actually happened to people, to families. That's really important that story is told.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're here. What happened to our family? There are people today that said the Holocaust didn't exist. Well, it did. Otherwise, there are millions of people that have been wiped out. We don't know where they are. Something definitely happened, and we have to acknowledge that, and we have to acknowledge it enormously. And our children should know it's a very important part of history.
And those of us who have survived.
Yes.
Families who have survived. You who have survived through your mother.
Yes.
Have made a huge contribution to their adopted country.
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, my mother just loved, she was proud to be British. She was so proud to be British. And I think we've helped so many people in this country, and we should carry on doing that. It's really important.
Debbie Arnold, thank you so much.
Thank you.